England fell at the last. Italy are worthy and deserved European champions, and the trophy belongs in Rome. But while Euro 2020 will be remembered for Italy's victory, it was also the tournament when a country fell back in love with this football team. This is the story of how England learned to like England again. English football has had many failures, and too many have felt the same. Yes, the Premier League created a land of milk and honey, but it also loaded the national team with celebrities and entitlement, and tournament performances have too often drowned in that hubris. But when people reflect on Gareth Southgate's time as head coach, and on Euro 2020 specifically, it will be upon a time of humility. This is the era when the most famous players were no longer assured of their places, and it didn't matter. When the squad and the media were no longer at war, well, most of it, and when the national team stopped being a punchline and started leading the conversation. You see, the old cliches have been retired. These are still wealthy players, of course, but detached millionaires have been replaced by young men with social consciences, who are happy to stand up for what they believe in and, in the process, become proxies for the people watching on. Marcus Rashford is at the vanguard of the battle against child poverty. He's rattled sabres with the government on universal credit too, and now he's carrying the torch for child literacy. Raheem Sterling stood down the vengeful British media. Tyrone Mings stood up to the Home Secretary. Harry Kane wore the rainbow flag as a captain's armband, and Jordan Henderson has helped raise millions of pounds for the National Health Service. And they all took the knee, even though it would have been easier not to. As it would have been for Southgate. If he hadn't, nobody would have said anything, but he knelt with them. 1996 still would have happened, he would still have the same ghosts, and this story would have still had its redemptive arc, but he stood with his players and told everyone to listen. That's unusual at the best of times. Today in England, that's especially so. At the beginning of July, The Athletic's George Culkin wrote, "There is so much anger in our politics and society. There has been so much sadness and fear in our lives. There was a time, not too long ago, when football was presented as the worst of us. Brutal, rich, arrogant, intolerant. And now, right now, it feels like the best." It does, yes, and the context matters. The English football team has been underperforming for decades, but England, the country, has also been burning for years with that hostility. You see, it's easy to misunderstand and to see the flags and hear the singing and recognise only arrogance and entitlement. But for most, it's relief that this team has provided. Relief from poor tournament performances, yes, but better yet, and rather bluntly, relief from the usual associations of being an England fan. You see, for too long, a minority of England fans have dominated the narrative. That minority has been racist and violent and arrogant. And it has never been clearer that this England team does not represent that group. Instead, it's Calvin Phillips cherishing the memory of his grandmother as he climbs towards a first major trophy. It's Mason Mount and Declan Rice playing alongside each other for their country as they once did as children. It's Raheem Sterling lifting his tiny son from the stands after scoring against Germany. What's so special about this England? Well, nothing, and that's really the point. These players came from all over the country. They are ordinary in a relatable way and have a texture that their predecessors kept well hidden. Jadon Sancho grew up playing cage football in South London. Harry Kane met his wife when they were at primary school together. And when the squad gathered for their official photograph, Jordan Henderson had to help Bukayo Saka and Jack Grealish with their ties. No, they're nothing special. They are normal and attached to society, connected enough to donate their prize money from this tournament to charities supporting the NHS. That politicians and provocateurs have tried to leverage this is unsurprising. That they've been largely ignored is wonderful. Because this team already has its voice. These players don't need someone else to speak for them. And maybe that's the real trophy.